Snow drifted lazily around the old bus stop, floating down in soft, silent spirals that blurred the edges of the city. The streetlights glowed a dull amber, reflecting off the icy pavement and casting long shadows that stretched toward the empty road. On a metal bench dusted with snow sat a well-dressed man, his dark coat perfectly tailored, his polished shoes untouched by slush. He looked out of place here, like a photograph cut from a magazine and dropped into the wrong scene. Name was Victor Hale. To the world, he was a billionaire, his face familiar from business journals, interviews, and conference stages. His success was legendary, his schedule packed, his life envied. Yet on this Christmas Eve, his phone lay silent in his gloved hand. No messages, no missed calls, no one asking where he was or wishing him well. His driver was due to arrive soon, but for now Victor waited, staring at the falling snow, feeling the familiar weight of solitude settle in his chest. A few steps away stood a small boy holding his mother's hand. The boy's jacket was thin and clearly too small, the sleeves stopping short of his wrists. His sneakers were scuffed and his breath puffed out in quick clouds as he shifted from foot to stay warm. Across the street, colorful lights blinked cheerfully in shop windows, and a large plastic Santa waved endlessly to passing cars. The boy watched the decorations for a long moment, then his shoulders drooped. In a voice so soft it almost blended with the wind, he said, "Mom said Santa forgot us again." The sentence was simple, unpolished, but it carried more weight than the cold air. Victor felt it strike him unexpectedly, like a truth spoken too plainly to ignore. He turned his head, drawn by the sound, and looked at the child. The boy noticed and met his gaze. For a brief second, neither of them spoke. Then the boy offered a small, shy smile, as if embarrassed for saying something so honest out loud. Victor looked away quickly, unsettled. He had spent his life surrounded by boardrooms, contracts, and carefully chosen words. No one ever spoke to him like that, unguarded, vulnerable, real. The boy's sentence echoed in his mind, "Forgot us again." Victor swallowed and glanced back once more. The snow continued to fall, the bus still hadn't arrived, and the city rushed on without noticing the quiet moment unfolding at a forgotten bus stop, where two very different kinds of loneliness were about to cross paths. The bus was late, its delay announced only by the steady ticking of time and the growing impatience of the cold. Snow continued to fall, collecting along the curb and dusting the metal frame of the shelter. The boy shuffled closer to Victor, his feet swinging just above the icy ground as he climbed onto the edge of the bench. He kicked his legs gently, as if trying to shake warmth back into them. For a moment, neither spoke. The city hummed in the distance, cars passing, a siren far away, the faint echo of holiday music drifting from a nearby store. Then the boy looked up at Victor, his eyes curious rather than cautious. "Are you waiting for Santa too?" the boy asked innocently. Victor almost laughed. The sound rose in his chest, unfamiliar and sudden, but he stopped himself before it could escape. He glanced down at the boy, surprised not by the question itself, but by how naturally it had been asked. No one ever addressed him so plainly. "I suppose I am," Victor replied after a pause, "though he hasn't visited me in a long time." The boy studied Victor's face carefully, as if considering this information. Then he nodded, slow and serious, the way children do when they believe something important has been said. "That's okay," he replied. "Mom says Santa comes in different ways, sometimes he looks like people." The words settled between them, warm and unexpected. Victor felt something tighten in his chest, a quiet ache he had learned to ignore over the years. He turned his gaze toward the street, but the boy's sentence followed him, slipping past the walls he had built so carefully around himself. Different ways, different people. Victor thought about the last time someone had spoken to him without fear, without rehearsed politeness, without wanting something in return. At meetings, people agreed with him too quickly. At parties, they laughed too loudly. Even kindness often came with conditions, but this boy asked nothing. He simply spoke the truth as he understood it. "My mom says," the boy continued, swinging his legs, "that people get lonely when they stop noticing each other." Victor looked back at him, startled. "Your mother sounds wise," he said quietly. "She is," the boy replied with a small smile. "She just gets tired." Victor nodded, understanding more than the boy realized. He adjusted his coat against the cold, aware that the bus still hadn't arrived, and strangely, he didn't mind the wait anymore. For the first time that evening, the silence felt less empty. Snow fell steadily around them, and under the dim shelter lights, a simple conversation bridged two lives that would never have met, except on a cold Christmas evening, while waiting for something neither of them fully believed in anymore, yet somehow still hoped for. The quiet of the bus stop was broken by the low hum of an approaching engine. Sleek headlights cut through the falling snow as a black luxury car slowed beside the curb. Victor recognized it instantly. His driver had arrived right on time. The door opened, warm light spilling onto the cold pavement, and for a moment, Victor remained seated, unmoving. He stood slowly, brushing a thin layer of snow from his coat. Instinctively, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. It was heavy, filled with crisp bills and polished cards, solutions he had relied on for most of his life. His fingers tightened around it, ready to offer something easy, something impersonal. Then he stopped. Victor glanced at the boy, who was now hopping in place to keep warm, his breath coming out in short, white bursts. The boy's laughter cut softly through the cold as his mother watched him with tired but gentle eyes. Something about the scene made Victor's hand fall still. He slid the wallet back into his coat. Instead, Victor loosened the scarf around his neck. It was new, woven from soft cashmere, a gift he had received weeks ago and never worn. It still carried the faint warmth of his body. He stepped closer to the boy, lowering himself so they were at eye level, and carefully wrapped the scarf around the boy's neck, tucking it in just enough to keep the cold out. "Merry Christmas," Victor said quietly. The boy froze, eyes wide, as if afraid the moment might disappear if he moved. He touched the scarf with both hands, feeling its softness. "Really?" he asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "For me?" Victor nodded, unable to find the right words. He simply smiled. In the next instant, the boy threw his arms around Victor's neck. The hug was sudden, tight, and unplanned, full of pure gratitude that needed no explanation. Victor stiffened in surprise, then slowly relaxed, his hands hovering awkwardly before settling gently on the boy's back. Before Victor could speak, the boy pulled away and ran back to his mother, proudly showing her the scarf. She looked up at Victor, eyes shining, and mouthed a silent thank you. Victor stood there as the car door remained open behind him, cold air brushing his bare neck. He was scarfless now, yet something inside him felt unexpectedly warm. Warmer than his mansion, warmer than any celebration he had ever hosted. As the car finally pulled away, Victor looked back once more at the bus stop. Snow continued to fall, covering footprints and smoothing the edges of the night. He carried nothing with him, but for the first time in decades, he felt full. That night, Victor canceled every remaining plan on his calendar. Meetings were postponed, invitations declined, and the quiet hum of his usual routine faded into the background. Instead of instructing his driver to take him back to the vast, echoing mansion that waited for him at the edge of the city, Victor gave a different address, one after another, thoughtful and deliberate. From the back seat of the car, he made calls he had never made before. Not to executives or assistants, but to community coordinators, shelter managers, and small charities whose names rarely appeared in headlines. He asked simple questions. What do you need tonight? How many families are waiting? Where can help arrive before morning? Arrangements followed quickly. Anonymous donations funded warm meals for shelters already overflowing with people seeking refuge from the cold. Vans loaded with groceries were redirected to neighborhoods where lights were dim and cupboards nearly empty. Boxes of winter coats, hats, and gloves were ordered for children who would otherwise wake up to another freezing day. Victor gave no instructions to attach his name. In fact, he insisted it be left out entirely. Later, alone in a quiet hotel suite overlooking the city, Victor stood by the window and watched the snow fall. Below him, streets glimmered under white blankets and tiny figures hurried home carrying bags, children, and hope. The city felt different now, not distant, not divided into numbers and investments, but alive with stories. Victor thought of the boy at the bus stop, of the shy smile, of the simple sentence that had cracked something open inside him. He realized then that he had spent years believing he was forgotten when in truth he had simply forgotten how to see others. As the clock crept closer to midnight, Victor allowed himself a small, genuine smile. Santa hadn't forgotten him after all. He had arrived quietly without sleigh bells or red suits. He had arrived at a bus stop wrapped in falling snow, wearing a child's honest words, and delivering a Christmas miracle that Victor would carry with him long after the season passed.